So I'm gonna take you guys on a little journey back in time about 31 years ago, and I was making $5 an hour, and I got offered a job making $21 an hour. That was life changing. I went from being this guy that just couldn't make ends meet to a guy that was making some pretty good money. The bad side of it is I didn't have any money to speak of. A little bit. I think I may have had to borrow some money just to go out of town because this was a traveling job to go out of town and work. Wasn't a traveling job, but I had to travel to the job, and uh, and so I had this big idea that I would just stop at Walmart and buy me a tent, a cheap sleeping bag. I thought that'll it's going to be uncomfortable and miserable, but I'll do it for a couple of weeks till I get the first per diem check. Then I can just start staying in a motel like everybody else. After that first night on the ground, uh, I'd rented a camp spot for $6, and luckily it had a hot shower there that you just one little shower room with a toilet that you could go in and use. And nobody was. It was early spring. Nobody was camping. Very few people. Maybe a couple of RVs there. But I woke up cold and hurting and miserable, and I thought, man, I got to do something about this. I can't even afford a mattress out here. So I got to figure out something. Well, it was kind of an unkept campground. So what I did is I pulled my tent up, and I didn't realize at the time this was my first step into bushcraft. And it's that necessity is the mother of invention. Uh, yeah, so I used the brain between my two ears that God gave me and used some common sense. And I raked up a bunch of those leaves and set that tent over them and staked it down and crawled there and went to sleep. Next morning I woke up pretty warm and not hurting. And so I learned that I had to like redress that bed. So that was my first debris bed. Didn't even know there was such a thing. Didn't even know what bushcraft was. So every night I'd pull that tent up, redress my leaves, put the tent back down, and sleep. And in the meantime, I figured out because I couldn't afford a stove or anything. I was broke. I had just enough money just to go buy some canned food. And so I learned that I took this old ice tray and I'd pile it full of real dry twigs and get those twigs going and get me a pretty good fire going. And then I could heat up my beanie weenies or my soup or whatever it is I had to eat. 2 weeks rolls by and I get my first get my first per diem check, and I didn't want to move into a motel. I'd already made my own little world there. I thought, man, I got my tent, I got my bed, I got I'm not giving this up. I'm kind of enjoying this. This is kind of freedom, really. So I took that per diem check and I went and bought me a stove, bought me a headlamp, just a few things like that, and yeah, so I ended up doing this primitive camping thing in the beginning, and then moved into some more modern stuff, which kind of developed into a backpacking passion that I did for the next 10 years. I had picked up a backpacker magazine while I was out there to have something to read to kill the time, and just reading about these different people going these different places on foot, and became very infatuated with it. But then I did that for a number of years, and then I started missing that feeling I had when it was just me and that tent and that sleeping bag, and I had to figure out stuff. I had to build a fire, I had to make my bed, and so somewhere along the way, I ran across some Ray Mears videos, and and man, I was hooked. This was probably 2007, something like that, and I became very hooked on uh, bushcraft, watching Ray Mears make tripods out of saplings and making bannock in a cast iron next to the river. And so I started doing these things. I got me a fire still and just started kind of, uh, doing away with the more modern gear. I gave away my stove, gave it to my daughter, I believe. So anyway, long story short, that's how I ended up being a bushcrafter. Is that starting out as a necessity, developed into a more modern kind of camping obsession, to missing that feeling of the original doing what I had to do. And so through the years, I've kept notes of different things I would learn. And even though I knew how to do them, I wrote them down so I could always revisit. And so I started compiling them into a book lately, and I call this Essentials, Do What Works. And this is just a book for me. So when I learn something new and I get to where I can achieve it pretty easily, then I write it down and it's in my book, and it's do what works. When I find something else that works to achieve what I want to do, to me that is an essential. What works to keep you warm, fed, and hydrated, and comfortable. To me that's essential. So do what works. And that's my little book. I've got everything in there from owl sounds to land navigation to fire building to different boiling temperatures at different elevations, things like that. That just stuff, instead of just trying to learn it all at once, I just get it piece at a time. And so I wanted to walk you through my gear that I use now. And I'm also a minimalist. And that's one thing I discovered way back when I was using the tent, sleeping on the leaves. Later on, I realized I'm a minimalist. I don't like to have too many clothes. I don't like to have too many things. I don't like clutter. I don't like having too much stuff. So that's another thing I like about bushcraft is you do more with less. So let's start off from the top tier. Let's go with the backpack down to the rest of the gear. So for years and years, I just used the cheap backpacks. But I ended up getting away from those. I'm talking about like the $30 backpacks. And you want to get something in that like 45 to 65 liter capacity. The cheap ones, when you sweat in them a lot, and I sweat a lot, they stink. Oh, they stink so bad. And I did a 172-mile backpack trip, and I had this backpack that by the end of it stunk so bad. It was a super duper cheapie. I'm not even going to say the brand name, but it was so cheap. When I got to the end of that, I dumped my gear in the car, and I took that backpack and threw it in a trash can. So, and then after that, I got me a North Face Terra 65. I think I had a couple other in between, but my first really what I considered a good one was the North Face Terra 65. And even when you go into what the popular kids use, they don't use the Terra 65 because it's the model that Academy sells or whatever. But it's still a great backpack, heavy duty. I think the outer shell is 800, and I think the bottom half is like 1200. Where you set it on the ground, it's 1200 denier. So I think I'm saying that right. I think it's called denier. But that's the heavy duty of the type of stitching, and 1200 is really, really heavy. And I've still got that backpack. But last year, I bought my first really good, what the cool kids use, and this is a Fall Raven Sinji 48 liter backpack. But it was a gift. My wife bought it for me for Father's Day or something like that. I've still got the old Terra 65. And I still like that pack, but it's nice. It's good to have something, after all these years of doing this, this is the most expensive, high quality backpack I've ever owned. Now, with that said, everybody needs a day pack because you don't always want to carry your big backpack if you're just doing a day hike or you're doing just a small overnighter. So I wanted something, I'm guessing this is probably around a 22 liter, 18 to 22 liter. It's a Mountain Hardware, which is a really good brand. And I paid $4 for it. So this is the way I really roll, okay? Thrift store, $4. This pack is in perfect shape. I put me a sternum strap on it. The shoulder straps are in great shape. The only thing is where this bungee cord stuff is, the little loops that it goes through, they're a little bit frayed. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Anyway, they're frayed. See, they're kind of fuzzy looking. But I don't even use this bungee stuff anyway. I could cut that bungee cord out and never miss it, really. I just kind of leave it in there. And it's all still holding, still intact. It's not ruined. The rest of the pack is in great shape, and I use it all the time. $4. That's probably a $60 pack buying it at the store, okay? My Fall Raven pack is about $300, okay? The North Face Terra 65 was $160. But I bought that. I didn't even know about Facebook Marketplace and places like that. I just didn't do internet much back then. You can find stuff like that for $50 every day, all day long. So if you're on a budget and you're getting started out, just go to Marketplace or somewhere, or find these little used outdoor stores. If you're in Colorado or somewhere, lots of those stores, they sell that stuff for half of what you can buy it new, and it's in great shape. So don't let money keep you from delving into bushcraft. And don't fall into this so-and-so on TV or so-and-so on YouTube is using this brand of knife or this brand of backpack or this brand of that. Or like I said, I'm at an age I can buy anything I want, and I'm not going to. First of all, I got a great family that has given me so much gear that I really haven't had to buy anything. I bought very few pieces of gear. My first bushcraft knife, besides an old buck or something like that I used for years, was or an old timer, whatever, I can't remember what it was. But anyway, I've had several fixed blade knives, but real, like I love Mora knives, and I bought this one off of Cody Lundeen 11 years ago. The blade used to be 4.13 inches long. Now it's under 4 inches because I keep sharpening it. It's getting shorter and smaller. I love this knife. It's carbon steel. I have several knives. I'm only going to show you a few. This is a gift. My daughter gave this to me. This is a Mora Garberg full tang knife, as good as any knife out there. Look around, you get them for $80. Boom, 100 tops. Mora Companion. I bought this one, less than $20. Stainless steel, great little knife. Not a full tang, still a great knife. I paid $20 for this one. They're about 35 now. So there's a 2 is 1, 1 is none rule, where you need at least 2 knives, because if you lose one, you still have another one. If you only have one knife and you lose it, you're up the creek without a paddle. So 2 is 1, 1 is none rule. I do that with a lot of things, but especially knives. So if somebody said all you can take is 2 knives, I'd probably take something like this neck knife and the Mora Garberg. If they said that's what the 2 knives you have to have, that's probably what I'd take. But the knife that gets the most use is this Mora Companion. These I've had for a long time, a lot of years. This one I just bought recently. It's only $20, and it's a stainless steel knife. Great knife. I've taken, this one's outfitted to use with a fire steel on the spine. These two are not, they're beveled spines, but I 90'd those spines off so I could use them with a fire steel. So I have 3 knives here compatible with a fire steel, not including all the other knives that people have bought and give to me. My oldest daughter bought me a knife. My brother gave me a custom knife. I've got a custom knife that's a great knife and would probably be a $250, $300 knife if I had to go buy it. But he gave it to me. So when I buy stuff, it's $100 knives. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with buying a $400 knife. If that's what you want to do and you get enjoyment out of it, do it. Of course, by all means, do that. I'm just saying, if you're a guy like me that's kind of a tightwad minimalist, just don't see the need. There's no need to be embarrassed because you're using a $100 knife. Don't let people shame you. By all means, I love when one of my buddies has the $400 LT Wright knife. I love to look at it, and say, hey, let me see that. It's beautiful, I just can't see me spending that kind of money for me. I might even spend it on a friend if I knew a friend wanted it and I had the money and I felt the urge that I was supposed to buy them that knife. I might buy somebody else a $400 knife just to be a nice guy. For me, it's going to be a $100 knife. So I think, for one thing, I'd feel terrible if I lost it. First time I take a $400 knife to the woods, it'd end up in the bottom of the creek. I can carry these cheap ones around for 10, 15 years, and they keep finding their way back into my pack. So anyway, so that's the knives. Fire steels. Let's talk about fire steels real quick. Now, when I say fire steel, I'm not saying go to the woods and only take a fire steel. Have a backup. Have a lighter. I like this little waterproof thing here. And I put my fire steel on a lanyard that I'll loop around my belt, a lark's head around my belt, and just use a carabiner. That way I can just snap the fire steel off, use my fire steel, snap it back in, put it back in my pocket. A lot of people will suggest that you use like a 6 foot. This is a 1/2 inch by 6 foot. You ain't gonna be carrying no 6 foot fire steel around. I like the 4 inch. because when I put it in my pocket, when I sit down, I'm not getting stabbed by it. But I also like to put a little lanyard like on this. I can't get it undone at all. But anyway, I put a lanyard on the lighter, and that way, here we go, maybe we got it. Yep. And that way, because when I'm canoeing, in case I take a dump in the river, I'm not going to take a dump in the river. In case I take a spill in the river, reword that didn't sound right. I can just snap this. Now, if I take a tumble out of my canoe, I've got 2 fire sources right here. Plus, I want to have my waterproof match case in my pocket. I'll have this in a lark's head around my belt stuck in my pocket. So when I get to shore, if all my other gear gets washed down river, then, and say I bum up my arm and I just can't work a fire still, or I'm too cold, I've got a Bic, I've got matches, so I've got alternative ways to make fire. And usually I'll actually have a little, like some pine knot shavings in a little baggie, maybe in my life vest. I've got a big pocket there, and I'll usually put me some tinder in there. So that way, if I got to get to shore and get a fire going, I've got everything on my person that I need to do that. And if you're new to bushcraft, man, get you a fire steel and practice with it. And I paid like $10 or $12 for this fire steel, I think, at firesteel.com. There's also one called Light My Fire that's a really easy fire steel to use. It comes with its own striker. It's got its own emergency whistle. And they're really easy to use. But I want to really caution you on, if you're new at this, go ahead and buy yourself a fire steel that's fairly hard, just a medium. I don't even know how you would classify it, but like the Coglins, the cheap Coglins that used to sell in Walmart all the time, those are decent fire steels as long as you've got a good striker. It's really in your striker. So if you're going to use the back of your knife, get that spine at the right, 90-degree, bite, to where no matter what fire steel you use, you're getting a good spray of sparks. The only downfall to using like a Light My Fires, they are so easy to use. If you lose that thing and somebody says, well, here, use mine, it's kind of like learning all over again. Okay, so go ahead and learn how to use a regular fire steel, and then later on, if you want to go with the Light My Fire, those are great. They're great fire steels, but they are easy to use, so they may handicap you a little bit. Headlamps. I love Petzls. I've had this one. I ran across a memory from like 12 years ago, 10 to 12 years ago, and I'm wearing this headlamp. And this is only the second Petzl that I've had, and I've been at this between backpacking and bushcraft. I'm looking at about 31 years. This is only the second Petzl that I've had. Now, I've got other ones over here that I bought recently that are just, when I find them on sale, I may buy one and stick it back. But as far as consecutive, this is the second consecutive headlamp that I've owned by Petzl since I started this whole outdoor game. And the only reason I got rid of the first one is because I dropped it on the ground and it busted the casing, and the batteries wouldn't make good connection. I used it forever wrapping black tape around. And finally we were in a store one day and my son was like, Dad, you got the money, buy you a new headlamp. So I did. I bought this one 12, 15, I don't know, a long time ago. Now, these are about $30, and you can get way higher than you start getting into black diamonds and things like that. I haven't had any luck with black diamonds. That's just me. Not putting them down or nothing, but I've had 2 of them and they both quit on me. These have been workhorses. You can find these 2 for $20, I think, in hardware stores and automotive stores. This is the Ever Ready, and it's got 3. You can go from 3, 2, and 1. And they work really well. The only problem is the on and off switch is kind of touchy. So sometimes but right after I got this one, I put it in my pack and I accidentally bumped it and turned it on. When I got to where I was going, my batteries were dead. So I had to change that and put my spare batteries in it right off the bat. That's the only thing. So if you get one of these, I keep this one around the house. This is my running out, finding the dogs, taking the dogs out to do their business kind of stuff. So I can just hang it up and I'm not worried about, hitting that. And like I said, it's a good lamp, but you may want to put it in something or just to keep that protected. Because I mean, you just barely touching it comes on. The Petzls, you know, you gotta dig in a little bit to turn that on. But I love the Petzl headlamps, but these are also pretty good. So this video is just, it's really directed at people that want to do this and they're going, oh man, I'm watching so and so and they got this, and then I see this ad and this is going to cost this. I just can't afford to get into it. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. For $50, you can get into a backpack for. And I would suggest don't jump out there in cold, extreme weather trying to be, you know, Mr. Survivor Man and go out. I want to go out in the middle of the winter and I've only started 3 fires with my fire still. Don't do that. Camp in fair weather for a couple of seasons. And then if you go in more inclement weather, go with somebody who knows what they're doing and just kind of watch and learn. That's the way I did. I've taken some classes, you know, friction fire classes and things like that in recent years, just because I wanted those skills to go along with. Here my dog's barking. Anyway, I wanted some skills, some primitive skills to go along with my bushcraft skills, just to kind of round it off, and have gotten pretty good at some of them. So it's a really inexpensive hobby to get into, or it can be a very expensive hobby to get into. Just depends on what you want to do. Now let's talk about cookware. So we've talked about our fire making, ignition. We've talked about our backpacks. We talked about sleeping bags. If it's fair weather, don't be too stressed about the sleeping bag. Always buy something that's rated for colder than what you're going to be sleeping in, because if it's a 0-degree bag, don't go out there in 0-degree weather. You're going to freeze to death. So, for example, I have a 0-degree bag, a synthetic bag, that I'll typically wear in about 25-degree, or I'll sleep in about 25-degree weather. Gets down below that, I'm going to start adding to that, okay? Plus, there's some tricks that I know to keep myself warm, even in an underrated bag, but those are just things you've got to learn along the way. It's layering and different things you can put in the bag with you. There's stuff that I don't have time to really cover in this video. So, I carry multiple ignition sources. You know, you got your fire steel, you got your lighter, you got your matches, carry some tinder, carry at least 2 knives, keep them nice and sharp, learn how to sharpen them. You know, a backpack you can get into, like I said, about $50. In warm weather, you can get into a sleeping bag probably for about the same, or even around $100 for a brand new one, like a Marmot Nano 45 or something. Use it for your spring and summer camping. They're great. I've had 2 or 3 of those. I really like those Marmot bags. I like synthetic over down bags, just because of you can kind of keep it, you can kind of store them differently, and if they get wet, they're not as bad as what you're running into with your down bags. And I have a down bag, and I still use it sometimes. So there's plus and minuses to it all. You just have to get into it and do it for a while and kind of get a hang for what's your preference. So really all that leaves, of course, carry yourself a good first aid kit, know how to use it. Let's get into cookware. So you can get into a lot of money on cookware, but I'm going to show you my first bush pot, which is still my bush pot. So I had one other one I made out of some stainless steel, like canisters, and I gave it to a buddy that, in fact, he was wanting to get into bushcraft, and I said, well, I gave $2 for this, and I'd put a baler handle on it and made it made an aluminum out of a candy tin. I had made a lid for it and everything, and so I gave that to him, and then I went to Walmart, back to Walmart again. This is a stainless steel cook kit that had this pot with one the size smaller. They both had the sign handles on it that you could hold it like a mug. I gave the other pot away. I took these handles off. I went and cut me a piece of bell handle off of an old 5-gallon bucket, drilled me some holes. This had like a plastic tab for the handle to lift. It melted right off the bat, so I got one of these little clippies and got one of the handles off of the clippies, and that's what, it was perfect, fit right in there. I paid $9 for this whole set many, many, many years ago, probably 12, 14 years ago, at least, I'm gonna say at least 12. There's old pictures on Facebook of me using this 10, 11 years ago. I used a lot of the fancy skillets. Handles, fold up handles would break, and finally I got me a cold steel. Weighs the same weight. You just slide it down in your pack. I do use smaller pots when I'm off by myself. I've got this. This was given to me by my friend Chad Honeycutt. I've always wanted one of these called a Zebra Billy Can. Love it. The thing about these, this stainless steel here, it doesn't gum up and get black like this. That's been cooked over some pretty sappy fire, and it's always wiped off really nice. So that's what I like about this. And I've got a couple of other, almost everything except for buying this, and I paid $22 for this. This was given to me. Another whole cook set that I have out in the building was given to me. I do have a GSI Kettleist that I bought years ago, and it's a neat little cook kit. But in the beginning, this was all I had. This was it. And I like this one because it's 1.5 liters or so, and I can boil a lot of water in it. So if I want to make a good big pot of coffee in the morning, I can. So just a quick rounder to kind of give you an idea of what you can get into this stuff. Backpack, like I said, you can find them for $50 on Marketplace. There's a cook kit right there, $10. That was $22 out of an antique store. $20 knife, $30, $35 knife. So there's $55, $60 for 2 knives, or buy 2 of these. They're under $20 a piece. Just buy 2 of these. You can put this on a lanyard and wear it around your neck. Nothing wrong with that. Fire steel is about $12 for a decent one, $5 for a cheap one. Make sure you got a good striker. Day pack, $4, man. And I'll carry this till it falls apart. And so there you go. It's the things that'll cost you money. You know, I didn't skimp on my navigation stuff. I've got a really good silver compass in here, and I use Right in the Rain notebook. So there's $100 tied up in this little kit right here. But you can also get a $40 Cinto MCB over here. That's a good little compass, mirrored compass. So of course, learn how to use them. But as far as just basic bushcraft, if you're not going to be out where you got to navigate and all that, I'm talking about just basic gear. Everything else is bells and whistles, but you're going to need a couple of good knives, a couple of good headlamps, backpack, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, a cook kit. And from there, I mean, your filters are optional. You can always boil your water. You can treat with iodine. That's a whole other lesson to be learned right there. And there's a lot to learn on how to do this stuff. And there's I don't know how we would say, you need to get out and do it to try it out, like using your fire steel. If you learn how to do bow drill, don't make that your primary. I've done probably I don't know, good gosh, I'm not going to say maybe 1,000. I'm going to say I've probably done 400 or 500 bow drill fires in the 11 years since I've learned how to do it. But I'm not going to just go to the woods and make that my primary. I may take it and use it just for fun. The good thing about learning the primitive fire skills along with the more modern, like the fire steel or even using matches, is you learn the characteristics of that fire triangle, and you figure out how much oxygen that you need. There's 21% oxygen in the air versus the 16 that you exhale. You learn how to work all these things or how to transfer. My wife gets on to me for not finishing my sentences. Or in conjunction with each other, okay? Or how to transfer a coal from, say you've got an ember that's just about to die out, but you got a little piece of coal out of a fire pit that's laying there. You can transfer that and make it a bigger coal and get it into your tinder. There's lessons to be learned in all of it that you just have to go do it. And I do suggest taking some classes on the basic fundamental skills, and then you take those and practice them and get good at it, and then you can build on from there and figure out what direction you want to go. I mean, when I started out, it was basically bushcraft, but it was just camping out of necessity that led into a more modern backpacking habit that went right back to bushcraft. And it was just through all those years of just tinkering with it and experimenting and learning. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of let you guys know, just don't worry about fancy. Don't worry about raves or the latest rave or the latest, style or this or that. Bushcraft it's all meant to be doing more with less, getting dirty and just going out there and, just having fun and using the resources God gave us and just experimenting with them and playing with it and learning different ways. You'll figure out things on your own. You'll actually go, wow, man, I'm going to try this. And it worked really well. And then you'll be watching a video and you'll see somebody else do it, because we learn a lot of these things. Like I said, necessity is the mother of invention. So a lot of stuff you'll just figure out, but don't go out on your own in inclement weather. Don't let that be the time you're figuring it out. Figure it out in your backyard first. Like I said, take a few classes and just enjoy meeting other people with the same passion. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, that's what I got for you today. So you guys be blessed. Thank y'all for joining me. And to tell you how cheap I am, I'm recording this on an iPhone, and I'll edit it on this same iPhone and upload it onto YouTube this afternoon. I don't even know how to use a computer. So there you go. Love you guys. Thank you. Appreciate you. God bless. And I hope to see you in the woods one of these days. If I'm out in the woods somewhere and you recognize me, say, hey, are you that dude? That'd make me feel good. All right. See y'all later. Bye.